Still slightly ill after his recent episode of food poisoning, Magnus Carlsen opted to play it safe and go for the draw with white. Praggnanandhaa was also very happy with the result. He expected a fight this afternoon.
Welcome everyone. Today is the day and the final between Magnus Carlsen and Praggnanandhaa will continue today on the tiebreak matches. And we will witness another history for the chess world. Who will be among these players going to be the World Cup winner, and also for the contestation of the third spot between Fabiano Caruana versus Nijat Abbasov. Irina, how are you today? How are you preparing for today? I'm so excited.
I'm definitely really excited about today's match as well. I feel like, well, anytime you go to a rapid and blitz tie breaks, right, the tension just goes up, the excitement goes up. And in a way, it is better to kind of, for the fans to see a match like this than to have it over in the classical time control. Like, it is more exciting. So I feel like, you know, maybe we should thank them that their game yesterday, you know, was not contested too much and it was a draw, and that we're going to get to see today.
Yeah, definitely. And wow, it's two draws between Magnus Carlsen and Praggnanandhaa, and two decisive results between Fabiano and Nijat. So yeah, I don't know what to expect today, but some explosive games on the board. So
yeah, that's kind of inevitable. Yeah, with this time control. Well, I think the match between Magnus and Pragg, to be honest, like, it hasn't really started yet. That's my feeling about it, right? Like, I think because, first of all, of the circumstances, right? Because of the food poisoning,
right?
But, you know, we definitely saw Magnus kind of playing with, like, small percentage of his energy the last few days. He managed to hold with black with no trouble. He obviously didn't want to play with white. So, yeah, I feel like, you know, the match hasn't started. It's going to start today.
Yeah, indeed. And as we know, Magnus Carlsen is the former world rapid and blitz champion. So, well, taking the match into the tiebreak is definitely into his favor. But we also know that Praggnanandhaa is very experienced tiebreak players here in the World Cup, winning all the tiebreak matches. And, you know, from the experiences here, when you already get to play a few tiebreaks like that, you get to know the feeling, like how it's going to be, what type of preparation do you have to do, and so on. So, wow, it's going to be a very close match, I would say.
Yeah, I'll tell you an interesting observation I had yesterday. So I felt like maybe yesterday before the game, you know, he was looking better, he was smiling before the game, and I was like, oh, maybe, you know, he's feeling fine. Now we're going to see him fight as white, right?
Right, yeah.
Now, in his post-game interview, though, then it was like, back to, like, you know, it looked like he wasn't really recovered. I mean, I don't know if you saw that, but it's like, you could tell that he wasn't really recovered. And I was like, wow, what a difference. Now, maybe, you know, you kind of have to disguise your real state before the game. Because if your opponent feels that you're not at 100%, if he feels that you don't really want to play, maybe they're going to do, you know, more to make a fight out of it. There is this kind of logic, right? And so once the game is over, then you can sort of reveal, you know, how you really feel.
Right, yeah. And also from Praggnanandhaa's interview, he said that he didn't really know that Magnus had this health condition, or health situation. So he was just playing as his normal. And wow, less than 3 minutes to go.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Like, if you know that your opponent is not well, is it something that you should try to use and try to get a real fight going on the board and keep them playing? Or should you be kind of nice about it and be like, well, they're not feeling that well, let's just make a draw until they feel better? I mean, it's kind of a question, philosophical question. You know, is chess a war, or is it a gentleman's game?
Well, I think for Praggnanandhaa's side, he would be just playing his chess. He wouldn't take this into account, like, about Magnus's situation. So he would be just preparing as normal and then play his normal chess. So I think it's gonna be. Yeah, it's just going to be like that. And I hope today Magnus is feeling better. The interview, actually, that he saw this game, girls under 14 game and it was actually a friend of mine who played that.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, Magnus Carlsen with a slicker do hair.
Yes, arriving at the board 25 seconds before the game is bound to start, so he's on time. He's got the black pieces. And what predictions do we have for Pragg's first move? Is he going to go for c4 like he did in their first game? I mean, it wouldn't be a surprise.
It wouldn't be a surprise, yeah. But any move here, I think it would be also equally be a potential. Maybe e4. I have a feeling that it's going to be just e4.
Okay, let's see. Oh, you are right. Look at that. It's like as if you talked to him. Did you find him on the walk and ask him what he was going to play?
No.
All right, so
it's
now
just-
Magnus starts adjusting his pieces as his clock is running. So, okay, I guess we expect e5.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, e4, e5 is very popular in this tournament. Both in the open and women's, yeah? Just very, very popular.
Okay. So knight c6.
Are we going to see some roll-uppers, some
Italian,
Berlin
probably.
stuff? Italian.
Yeah, Italian. The bishop didn't go out that far. And d3 on the board. Bishop c5.
Yeah, so and a4. Yeah, I think one of Praggnanandhaa's game or against Fabi, it was the approach of bishop e7 instead of bishop c5. Yeah, but this is equally good. I mean, this is just well, a4 immediately. Yeah, usually we saw with c3 on the board.
Yes, it's a little bit more unusual to start with a4, but I mean, a c3 is still going to have to happen, right?
Well, you can choose. Actually, if you start with a4 here, there is a there's a play of knight c3, knight d5, this type of idea. So, but of course, a4 can also be some transposition to c3.
Yeah, it seems to have made Magnus think a little bit. So I guess so. The question is, does he want to push the a pawn here, right? Does he want to go maybe a6, a5, or maybe just d6 and kind of, well, I guess you could even let the pawn advance a bit, but
Yeah,
he
just
plays
d6.
d6. Yeah.
So he's trying to be a bit flexible about the a pawn. It can be pushed to a6 or a5.
Yeah. By the way, we have a much more unusual position on the board between Abbasov and Caruana, but we can we can take a look at that later. Yeah, the opening seems interesting. So we have castles on the board. So at this point, will Magnus be castling or playing maybe a move like h6? Do we want to spend a tempo on that to avoid the pin?
I don't think so. Maybe Magnus will start pushing the a pawn now. I don't know what he's going to do. a6 would be my guess, but yeah, h6 or castle, it's also quite a possibility.
Yeah, so if you push the pawn here, the downside is that you're weakening the square, right? This
Yep.
b5 square. And if you push the pawn there, it allows white to, I guess, take more space on the queen side, like we've seen, like Fabi even do, I think, against Prague.
Yep.
The c3, b4 plan.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, those two moves have pluses and minuses. So, and also, this might come as a surprise for Magnus. See how he's already thinking in the opening phase. Like usually he's just blazing out his moves.
Yeah, it's interesting. So if you play h6, it's just a little bit too slow, right? You know, maybe c3 happens, and then, well, I mean, still, it's not too late to push the a pawn, right? And then like move your bishop back in case of d4. Bishop moves back somewhere. And there's like some famous, there's a famous kind of like trick here, right? When there's this trade.
You can just take it with the king.
With the king usually, right? Because you lose this pawn, but there's rook f8. And then you try to get this pawn back if you can. Although in this position with h6, it doesn't work, right?
Yeah, because bishop g6.
Yeah.
Or you
All
could
right.
have taken on e4 immediately.
Well, Magnus does actually play a5. And we have bishop e3 on the board. Okay, so big question for black. Do they trade or do they allow white to trade?
Yeah, both are totally playable. I think it's depending on what Magnus' strategy is. Like you can play bishop g4 here, but bishop g4 there's knight bd2. But if you already put the bishop on e3, I think we can safely just castle right now without afraid of.
That would be my intuition, right? Like that this structure would be rather pleasant for black. But there could be just an immediate problem with this move. It's maybe just tactical, right? Because then we start getting this e5 pawn hit.
Yeah, but there's bishop g4 as well.
Bishop g4, but then you get these triple pawns.
You want to take
Yeah,
that
I want to
just
take,
immediately.
yeah. It's not that I'm going to win your pawn, but it's more like if you protect it, right, in some way, that this happens and then you get triple pawns. It's very ugly. So that might be the problem, actually.
And
I
Magnus
think,
took on e3?
Yeah, that's why he took, yeah. He took and castled. So far, Prague is playing faster than him. He's got over 25 minutes. And Magnus, he's taken his time a little bit.
Knight e7.
Yeah, that's a very, very typical move in these positions, right? So one of the ideas is to open up the square for the pawn. You might have ideas of d5 later. And I think that's probably the main idea of c6, right? But also, I guess you could also put your knight on g6, although I'm not so sure what it does on g6. Yeah, I think it's just going to might just stay here for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I think you can go knight g6 either after c6 and d5. Yeah, but
Yeah, maybe c6, maybe then protect the pawn, right, and then have these ideas. All right, so white to move, and Pragg is finally thinking a little bit here. So what are the typical ideas here for white? And you can try to get
queen
the queen
e1,
over.
queen g3. Yes, that too. And yeah, it's pretty much the attack along the f file. So you just want to move your queen, or maybe queen also goes to e2. But I like the queen on g3 better.
And if we go knight h4 right away, and we open up the rook, are we possibly threatening any sacrifices here? Not yet, right?
Not yet, but this maybe allows bishop g4 now, and then queen e1, and yeah, I'm thinking what to do in this position, or maybe.
Yeah, knight h4 is interesting actually, because if they go knight g6, well, first of all, I would even think about taking it, because then the pawn structure changes, and then you get these doubled g pawns, and this pawn might be something that's actually a little bit easier to target, because your queen can come in, and you can try to attack that pawn immediately using that pin. So I'm not so sure that Magnus would want that structure to change. In that case, though, what can he do? I mean, he could play c6. Maybe c6, actually, because I don't think that rook takes f6 is a big threat just at this moment. Black is still pretty safe.
And he did it, yes.
Yes.
Knight h4 is on the board. Yeah.
Knight h4, and he did play c6, yeah, okay.
So are we going to see some sacrifice right now?
Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt it, because,
eh?
yeah, well, I don't think white's prepared enough to make rook takes f6 work. And, black can always bring the king in front, of the knight in front of the king. But what other kind of move can we expect here? Well, we can expect, I think, queen f3 or queen e1, right? Trying to get the queen to this square regardless.
Right, but those queen moves will allow d5 then, yeah?
Yeah, d5 is hard to stop. I mean, unless you want to go bishop b3. Do you want to, like, withdraw?
I think we
Your
can
bishop?
withdraw, yeah.
Maybe bishop b3, yeah?
Yeah, and then after d5 takes, and possibly e4. But I don't like my pawn in the center like that, just...
So, the other question is maybe Magnus is just going to be playing bishop e6. Because it seems actually like quite a decent developing move, right? I don't see the downsides of it. Because if white trades, white has absolutely nothing. So maybe he just wants to play bishop e6 next. So for example, if you pull the bishop away, I mean, yeah, I agree that d5 is interesting, but I would probably be tempted by this very simple move.
He played queen e1, so he allows this.
Okay, so he goes queen e1, makes sense. So now if d5 happens, are we going back immediately, or are we taking first? I mean, I guess we think that taking first
and then bishop b3
is the idea. But if you go bishop back immediately, there's actually a point to it, because maybe if you take, maybe then I can sack and get my knight here.
Yep.
So for example, bishop b3, and if you take, there's at least we can try this line. It's somewhat more interesting than before, because the knight is more active, right? It still might not work, but it's a better line than before. All right, and the other thing you can do, though, is you can capture back with knight takes e4, and then there's actually a lot of pressure on f7, because despite our kind of ugly doubled e-pawns, right, we got a lot of pressure here, and the bishop hasn't come out yet, right? Although it can come out, but maybe black's pawns are kind of weaker than white's here. Maybe it'll be easier to attack,
right?
After we trade. All right, so let's go back, and we're thinking about what Magnus will do after queen e1. So there's d5,
there's bishop
e6, and then there's other just kind of non-committal moves. I don't know, if you want to go king h8, get your king maybe a little bit safer, prepare for queen g3.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I totally like the options here. But I like Watt's position. I think as an Italian player, this is the sort of position that I would like to play.
Yeah, so let's say I try king h8 just to play the most non-committal move to see where you're going to go. You're going to go here. And what could be my next move? I mean, is this the only active counterplay that I have? Or is there something else? I mean, we don't really want to be going all passive like that, right? This is not the way these positions are played. I mean, it feels, I mean, maybe you could do it, but it feels
A bit
rather
wrong, yeah.
passive, yeah? It's solid, you know, you're kind of guarding against everything, and you can probably still play for d5 later, but I don't know, I'd be surprised if Magnus plays it like that. So you're thinking d5, maybe the more
Yeah,
direct.
maybe d5 is a more
d5,
direct.
okay, so if I go bishop b3, then what?
And maybe now I can exchange the knight by playing knight g6, or even bishop e6 also looks natural.
Yes. Well, knight g6, maybe I just trade, take, I go queen here, and I hit the e5 pawn. That's the question, right? Because like my question is always like, should I trade or should I come in with a knight?
Right.
They both look kind of tempting, but I think trading and just going maybe queen f3
Queen,
is not a bad idea.
yeah, queen g3 and rook e8.
Sorry, queen g3 and rook e8, yeah. And knight f3. Can we try to hit this pawn with knight g5?
Yeah, that's possible. And then queen
There's
d6.
some initiative, right, for white in this position.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely seems easier for white to play.
Or there's a direct
Yeah.
attack, like instead of knight f3, I think you can take on d5, c d5 and e4, and then d e4 and queen g6.
Interesting. I still have bishop e6 there, so I can sort of hold on. But let's take a look. It's a very good point. So takes. You're trying to open up this immediately, right? So let's
It
say
doesn't work,
I
yeah?
take.
Or even I can
Well,
take
if I
now.
take, if I take, you can take with the knight, though.
Yeah.
You can take with a knight, because in this line, I think
Yeah, it's a bit dubious.
black is solid with that development. But this is, well, the funny thing is I can still go here, right? Because, I mean, it's not like I'm that scared now. My pawns are all going to be together. So black is pretty solid. Okay, did Magnus just make a move? He
D5,
did. He
yeah.
went for d5. Okay, good intuition on that one. So he
And
went
then queen
d5.
d6.
The bishop went back to b3. And Magnus, of course, did not capture there, letting the knight in. He played queen d6, defending this pawn. Okay. Well, that makes sense in some way, right? Although I don't know how well the queen stands there. You know, there could be some issues one day from this knight.
Yeah, but I think you have no choice here, because the knight on e7 has to guard the f5, and you have to protect now the knight on f6, otherwise there's an exchange sack there. So queen d6, I think it's kind of forced.
So what if we go queen g3? And on knight g6, do we now have maybe even knight f5? Is that like a more attractive move? Let's try that. I mean, queen g3 is going to get played, I think, by Pragg. I don't see why he wouldn't. And now on knight h5, and we again have that big choice. So this one, I mean, it still looks attractive to me, actually. I don't know, rook takes, pawn takes, again, like every single white move seems possible, right? You can sort of go for the tempo, or you can go,
I think take with the rook, yeah.
you know, for
and then
for the
doubling
f file.
rook, yeah.
Yeah, or you can go for this one. And again, kind of try to make the case that this pawn on g6 is a little bit weak. I wonder if we even have ideas of maybe just like playing rook f3 or rook f1 in these positions. But I think, you know what, I think the main idea is the knight coming in.
Yeah, and then the
that's
queen
actually
h4.
dangerous, yeah. Yeah. If we take, pawn takes, and the knight comes in, first of all, hitting that pawn, and then coming there. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on black's position, right?
Yep, yeah. Yeah, wow. So, I mean, out of the opening now, Praggnanandhaa is having a better position. And he has many options here to how to continue this one.
Yeah, because, I mean, once the knight gets there and the queen comes in, then you're threatening the big sacrifice on f6 and queen h7. Right, so I feel that Magnus is definitely under some pressure, right? Even though he's very experienced in these kinds of positions, it does look like Pragg is setting up an initiative here.
Yeah, totally, yeah. No, I really like this position. It's a dream position. I don't know why Magnus allowed this bishop takes e3 ladder too quickly, because we would like to hold it as much as we can.
Yeah, I mean, also, I mean, okay, well, d5 was also a big question, right? Like, this is a bit of a committal move because it actually weakens that pawn. It gives you sort of a target on this diagonal, right? So I think here, well, I don't know. This move was seeming like quite normal to me. And I can't really imagine us being worse here. Like, I see maybe there's a line like this, but I mean, in this structure, it just feels, I don't know, should be harmless, right? By all logic. I don't know, it's symmetric structure. Why should it be bad for black? So his move d5 is, can be, you know, seen as like maybe slightly more dangerous kind of option than some of the other ones that he had. And queen d6. Okay, so we're waiting for Pragg to find this move.
And he did. Yeah, he played it.
Okay. Yep, it's on the board. Very natural. Lining up the queen with the king, and this rook is also staring at the knight, so the queen really has to stay there protecting it.
Yeah. Wow. Do you think this could be an upset? Or maybe it's too early to...
Yeah, it's still early. It's still early to say. Okay, how about we try king h8? Can we try king
Yep,
h8 getting
king
off
h8.
the file? Okay, so let's try this move. And, I mean, wow. Like, it seems like a normal move, but white's initiative is just growing. Look at that. We're, again, coming into knight g5. I mean, and, like, knight e5 is also hanging. Yeah, that's... you know, this d5 move was quite committal.
Yeah.
Like, because imagine he takes, right? I mean, now I think I can just play knight takes e5, and that might be game over.
Yeah. And also you have this knight g6 idea. How do you stop that, right?
Yeah. So, oh, you mean like, okay, you mean like once I take?
Yeah, once you take...
Once I take...
the other knight, because it's a discovery.
Ah, yeah, that's what you're talking about. Yeah, this one. Okay, you want to win the queen. Okay. So, Magnus has to find a move here. How is he going to neutralize these pieces coming to the king side, right? It's not the position you want to find yourself in.
No, this is
Yeah.
this is so hard to defend. And yeah, Magnus, we could see on the camera, he's just trying to be very focused because only white can play all he wants here.
Okay, I have another idea for black. I mean, like, is there any chance at all for me to try to put a pawn in f6 to try to just guard this pawn and that square? Like, for that, I would need to move this knight.
You want to move it to h5?
Well, h5, you're going here.
And g6?
And then, I don't know. That looks,
g4 maybe.
Yeah, that looks so scary.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really want to play g6. But, I mean, okay, the knight d7 looks extremely ugly, but maybe if I can get the knight here, maybe I can make this work. All right, I mean, I know you have also d4 idea. That's really annoying. Actually, like here's the problem with this move is that you're going to change plans, you know, because now you're going to be like, oh, the queen's unprotected. And now I'm going to, instead of going for this idea, right, you're going to just start playing in the center. You're going to pressure me everywhere.
Yeah. And maybe you can put the queen... No, you have to keep hanging to the pawn, yeah? Because if the queen h6, then... Can I play queen h6?
Do you want to play queen h6 here? Well, I think this pawn is actually going to be kind of precious.
Yeah.
It's like triple pawns, but they're actually really powerful.
And that f5 is coming, yeah. And the bishop and the rook, they're undeveloped.
Yeah, I mean, you have some tactic based on this overload on the queen. Like, because you're actually protecting your knight here. But it's still, like, looking very dubious, right? Like, rook f4, you're almost about to lose your knight. Maybe you try something like that. I take, you take, then I take another pawn. So now I'm basically up a pawn. Magnus is twirling the pawn. Yeah. Is that the pawn? He must only have a pawn in his hand, right? Because no, there might be some other piece, but it's probably...
there's no pawn. It's a bishop.
It's a bishop, okay, because they traded those bishops.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. No, I mean, I think he feels how unpleasant this is, and I really feel like these last two moves were kind of the culprit, like the big one, because we weren't really sure yet about this position, right? But now he gave his opponent something to really latch on to, like that e-pawn, you know, and he knows that because he tried to defend it, but it's like the pawn is still a problem. Like, and these ideas, like the queen is not amazing on that square because of that pin.
Yeah, or knight f3 is there, knight f5. Yeah, too many good moves. Yeah, I think Magnus might be underestimating his position before. Like he thought that everything is still like quite equalish and symmetrical and so on. And
Let's try this move, h6. How about that? Because what did he just do? Oh, he
Knight
put his knight on
h5.
h5. Okay, he put his knight on h5. And what's going to happen after queen up? Maybe he's just trying to remove the queen from this diagonal.
And do you think like after queen g5, then knight back to f6?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're basically saying, like, is he going to defend it like that or move back? Because he doesn't have any other choices, right?
Yeah, he doesn't.
So I think he's probably going to move back because this feels a little shaky, but I mean, maybe you can go g6, f6, right?
Yeah, so I was just thinking if you play g6 and then g4, then you can play f6 maybe, yeah?
And then pull the knight back. Okay, this is interesting. So maybe
No, in that case, you can just take on g4 with the bishop.
Yes. You mean like, yeah, well, white can't go all aggressive like that because f6,
Yep.
and then this pawn is going to hang, and black is completely fine.
Yeah, so after g6, knight f5? Or what?
Knight f5 threatens this knight, yeah? It's actually kind of interesting, but knight f5 is interesting, yeah?
And then you push it to f6 and have a better position?
Yeah, it's an interesting move. There's a lot of tactics, right? Like, for example, if f6...
no, you have to take first because the queen is hanging.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Magnus made a move. Oh, no, I think Pragg made a move.
Queen g4.
Queen g5
Queen
is on the board.
g5.
Yeah, and now we're going to see how Magnus wants to defend this knight, whether it's just going back. And that makes sense, right? It makes sense because he got the queen off that square on g3, and he also is like stopping that. And then maybe he wants to just go h6.
Yeah, it does make sense. But he went for g6.
Oh, he went for g6.
Yeah, it's more natural to play such a move.
Okay. So we were looking at this move. Yeah, you're attacking the queen, so we have to make some sort of a trade.
So you take it with the bishop or the knight?
Well, maybe with the knight.
And your follow-up should be f6, yeah?
Well, yeah, that was the idea. But if I go f6, queen h6, like how am I holding that pawn? Because there's this tactical idea of giving up the rook for the bishop and winning the knight, getting the two pieces for the rook and having a great position. So, okay.
Oh, and Pragg also went for this idea.
He went for knight f5. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, very nice. Okay.
So I think you have to take with the bishop so that you can protect g6.
So keep the knight to have that pawn guarded, and then maybe you can play f6. Or, you know, there's an interesting subtle move here, king g7.
Wow.
To try, basically you're holding that square, and then you want to play f6, and then you don't let the queen in. But then the knight is like, is in some trouble, right? Like, but I guess you can still go back to f6 and then try h6. It's a little tricky, right? But let's try f6. Let's see if this is a problem, then we can try king g7. And if I go back, maybe even just bring back the knight.
Yeah.
Pressure that pawn. Okay, let's look at that. Queen
That
eight.
makes sense.
Yeah, just go here. How do you support that pawn?
e4. You can do e4 now.
e4, you want to try to use this diagonal, yeah? All right, at some point I can also play
Like G4?
g5. Yeah, okay, you're going here. So, by the way, there's also some sort of tricky move like that, using
Right.
the pin.
Wow, that's
But then,
interesting.
yeah, if you go there, I can take there, and I'm also hitting your queen. So, okay, let's try e4 first. Okay, we're seeing some changes on the
Yeah,
board.
bishop
Magnus
f5.
played bishop takes. Yeah, he kept the knight. All right. So I think, he took his time, but he is navigating, I think, this in a good way. Right? It's quite, it's not as bad as some of the lines that we looked at for black. Right?
Right.
So his knight h5 move, followed by g6, was quite clever.
Yeah, I mean, you only have two options after knight h5, right? Either to play g6 or knight f6, but g6 is just more human-like move and more natural.
So what do we think is going to happen in this position? You think, like, this is the question for Magnus, yeah, f6 or king g7? Okay, he's about to reach for something. He's about to reach for the king.
King,
yeah.
yes.
Look at him, like, playing all the accurate moves, yeah? King g7. Basically, he's not afraid of the pawn pushing because he's got 3 attackers on it. And White, if white goes with g4, I think that gives black a lot of options. Well, the main one is knight f6, I guess. You can throw in h6 if you want as well. Like you could put that move on the board, bring back the queen.
Also, you can force queen f6, yeah?
Even like this.
Oh, but queen f6.
A
Yeah, queen
third
f6,
option, trading the
h4.
queens.
But there's h4.
No, you know why you don't want it? Because I'm going to take.
And then
Knight
g5.
takes maybe g5 and then push in the
f6.
pawns. Yeah.
Right.
So I think either h6 or knight f6 both work. But I mean, you can even start with knight f6 because you can always play that later. So g4 is not that dangerous. So Pragg needs to come up with something else here. Meanwhile, what is black's idea? I mean, is the idea just to pull back the knight, or are we starting to maybe have some eventual ideas of taking the pawn? I don't know, rook takes, and then do we have some kind of attack on your queen? Maybe not yet, right? But yeah, maybe not yet.
Well, if you don't really do anything, I like to just clarify the situation by playing queen f6, attacking both your queen and the pawn. Yeah.
Well, that's not a bad idea at all, right? Because, I mean, this bishop is kind of shut out of the game now. Actually, white needs to figure out a way to get this bishop into the game, I think.
Maybe it's time to play e4.
But e4 also maybe gives us the f4 square in some cases.
That's true.
But e4, yeah, I mean, that's, like, I feel like if white's initiative is not enough, the bishop is definitely the culprit, right? Yeah, he's a little bit closed up here. Well, let's try e4. The problem is e4 doesn't really make a threat of any kind.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't.
You know, and it does give black a lot of options. So at some point, well, yeah, at some point it's going to be hard to attack that knight because it'll always be able to have that square. I kind of wonder if we can even kind of go for f6 and d4 and play like a dark square strategy.
Interesting. Yeah, but that bishop is not really a good bishop right now. There could be a strategy, but why giving that bishop something to shoot on?
Well, I don't know. It's interesting. So let's try it. Like f6, let's say you go back. Can I just play d4? Yeah, I mean, it does open up your bishop, right? It doesn't really give me any particular benefits.
Yeah, and also giving up the c4 square maybe for the knight.
Knight, yeah, I agree. So probably pushing is like premature. Yeah, it's not a great idea. Opens up your pieces too much. Okay, so I would just have to figure out something else here. So does black want h6 or does black want f6? Because I can also just, how about I just play like knight f6? Doesn't that look really solid?
Yeah, looking good. Does white have time to double up the rook? Or I don't think so. There's h6 and g5 maybe, yeah?
Well, you can try. I think you can try it, like rook f2.
Rook f2, h6.
h6, queen g3. The thing is, g5 allows me this stuff, right? Or g5 also allows me some knight f3s maybe.
And now maybe knight h5.
You can go back, right? Yeah. And you could go kind of back and forth, yeah? Well, what can we say? It's very double-edged.
It is, yeah.
It's not as bad. It's not, the way Magnus played it is definitely not as bad for him as we were thinking, right? I think he's doing a good job of trying to neutralize white's initiative. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but just get back a second because I thought this is just going to be very much dominating. So this knight f5 idea is turns out to be a little bit of an accuracy.
Yeah.
So what could white have done better here?
Okay, well, there's a computer line that I think is like very hard to understand, right? Like this, going back with the knight to attack the pawn, and then just stepping back. Now, understanding why this is somehow superior, like, no, it's just not obvious. That's why I didn't even mention it, because it was like,
There's no,
no, it's not very human-like. There's no particular reason why going backwards.
Right.
And like, I mean, of course, we can try to understand like why white should have stayed in this position. But I mean, yeah, I think that what Pragg did was like the very natural reaction, right? Basically, he took this knight on the side of the board, and the knight is not trying to go backwards; it's trying to go forwards, right? So, and that's what he did, right? So he brought the knight here, And even when there's a trade, he seems to get like a very powerful pawn that gives him a space advantage. Like what he did is very natural,
Yep.
right? But at the same time, mathematically, it does not appear to be the strongest option.
Right. Yes. Well, it's very hard to foresee this type of position that turns out even with the king moves to g7, it doesn't weaken black's position. It actually strengthens the position. And yeah, I mean, if I saw this position beforehand, I would still say that white is better. Yeah.
Right. No, of course, because you feel that white has the initiative with a pawn like that. On black side of the board, white's the only one with a pawn on the opponent's side of the board. You have like the half-open f-file. You have the active-looking queen. Yeah, I mean, I think all the signs are in place that white has an initiative here. But, you know, Magnus is quite subtle about neutralizing it, right? I mean, it's actually been quite impressive, the last few moves, because, you know, from a human point of view, it was looking like he was, you know, going to be
in trouble.
Yeah, in some trouble, defending, and he's like navigating it like smoothly past the turbulent waters. So yeah, I feel like the last few moves have been definitely quite masterful by him.
Yeah. So let's also see what Praggnanandhaa can be doing here. He's just basically passing the turn, king h1.
King h1, okay. Well, that's not a move that's going to worry Magnus too much, king h1. I know Magnus is going to have to show us what his idea is. And by the way, it does look here like your idea, queen f6, is actually very well timed. Maybe you should just force the queen trade.
And can the queen avoid it?
I don't think so, because
Just
that
knight-
knight f5, right?
Yeah, because I was thinking in this position,
Before-
you should just double the rook so that queen f6 cannot be done.
Why
Because,
can't it be done?
I can just play queen g4, and then if you take on f5, then I can double my rook, and it's very hard for
Okay.
you to navigate
Let's
it.
look at your point. So you wanted to basically do this move, right? And you're saying that that would have stopped this particular idea.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
just
because now we can take.
no, we can just move back.
Oh, sorry, we move back to where? G4? Yeah, G4
Yep.
is the only square. And then
Knight takes and then
there
rook
might be
f1.
knight h6. You thought this
clever.
was pinned.
Or
even
e3.
knight e3, yeah.
Yeah. So
Because
it doesn't
here-
really stop either.
Yeah, we were preparing to win the knight like that.
Yeah, but knight
looks
e3, of
powerful.
course.
But is it knight e3? Because knight e3, there's maybe even a queen h3 or even queen e2.
But queen g5, yeah?
Yeah. There's nothing there, yeah? Wait, so knight e3, I don't have any tricks. Yeah, because on queen there, you take my rook. So it seems like you could do this move as well. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So rook f2 still would have allowed queen f6. Yeah, it was a hard idea to stop. And actually, let's see if Magnus is going to find it. I think he will, you know, because it's one of the most forcing options he has, and it's quite safe, right? So the point of this move is that you're trying to get the queen trade. You're trying to go into an end game that, obviously, then you don't really have much to worry about in the end game. It's very pleasant. And if the queen goes back, you're finally free to take the pawn. Because now the queen protects the knight, so there's no rook f5. And when this happens...
There's queen
then,
h4.
Yeah, there's a lot, right? There's again...
there's again knight e3,
all these
knight
ideas.
h6,
And then there's queen h4, right? So there's one way of saving the knight, but there's really a lot, right? There's like this a fork, and when you take my queen, I take your queen, and basically black is up a pawn here.
Yep.
So queen f6 is going to be a very logical way for him to play, and I think it'll be a little bit unpleasant for Pragg.
Yeah, and I think Magnus
He just played it. Yeah. Okay. Definitely, so far, I feel like we're seeing a master class.
Yeah.
Yeah, at neutralizing the initiative, that was really good. And, you know, because this bishop is now closed up by the pawn. Right? So things have taken a bit of a turn in this game as Magnus kind of, first he neutralizes the initiative, and, you know, we'll see if he has anything in this end game. So I think white has to trade. Also kind of shows that this move is not the most relevant, right? Because
Yeah.
you moved your king away from the center. Now we're in the end game.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised of that move, actually. Yeah, what could Praggnanandhaa think about that move? Because
Yeah.
I think all the pressure has to be around the f-file, and playing king h1 in such a critical position, I would say, it's a little bit uncharacteristic. So
But do you think he just missed this idea? I mean, you can miss an idea
could
like
be,
that
yeah.
because black has a lot of ideas, right? It's like all of these moves are potential ideas. So queen f6, it's possible to miss, but at the same time, it's also a very logical move for black that you can consider, right?
Yeah, so just a reminder, the players are playing the first section of the rapid tiebreak. It's 25 minutes plus 10 seconds. And after 2 games, if the match is still tight, and they will keep continuing to the next rapid tiebreak, that is 10 minutes plus 10 seconds. So how many games do you think will they be playing today?
Oh, I don't know. It depends on how Magnus does in this one. I mean, if he manages to win, right, it could be a short match. But, you know, it's funny because there's an absolutely fascinating position on the board between Abbasov and Caruana. But I feel like we might get killed if we switch to that game. So we're not going to do that. But it does look like a very interesting game. Okay, we got a queen trade on the board. And let's take a look at this endgame. So they've got 10 minutes for this endgame. It's basically like the next time control is the 10-minute portion, you know. So they're there, but they're not starting from the opening, already from the end game. So this pawn is under attack. You can't keep it, right? So your space is getting traded. And actually, yeah, black is super comfortable after pawn takes with the H pawn. And the only thing I can see that could be wrong with that is like, could this pawn get hit with a knight? But it's not really, because we always have knight d7 in the worst case, right? Like if you move here, I mean, we A, have that move, but B, if we didn't want to change anything, we have that move, and that is also perfectly pleasant, right? So, yeah, Pragg makes the trade, and now we expect Magnus to capture it with the H-pawn towards the center. Yeah. So now we're going to get to see endgame technique in action.
Wow, yeah, I think it's going to be very instructive now. I mean, so far, all of Magnus's endgames, and the ones that he won, have been quite instructive, yeah?
Well, I have to say, so here are black's advantages in this position. Black's #1 advantage is space, so these center pawns against these guys. Also, he even managed to get a little bit of space by capturing with the H-pawn to the G file. His king is actually a little bit more active than white's. And also this bishop is closed up. So, you know, that's a number of advantages. It doesn't, I mean, white doesn't really have any weaknesses. That's the plus side of white's position. White has this like rook on the semi-open file. But I would say that it's quite unpleasant to play as white.
Yeah, I think the major reason why black is better here is just because of the bishop. Imagine if that bishop is replaced by the knight on c3. Well, black would still be slightly better, but it's not going to be very much, because then the knight can reroute. In this type of position, this is almost like a closed position, and the bishop is not doing anything over there. Then,
I think we have e4 on the board.
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea. You know, he's trying to open up the bishop.
Yeah, but then you have like a
weak pawn on e4.
Weak pawn on e4 until the end. So yeah, there's some. Yeah, Praggnanandhaa has to force some matters, because otherwise the bishop cannot be closed up permanently like that.
And Magnus took on e4, so he actually made that decision really fast. He had other moves, but I guess he was just tempted by the idea of this pawn being weak.
And then some rook d8.
I mean, in this position, okay, at some theoretical level, there's a knight c4 idea. Could be useful somewhere. And I would say, okay, it's good for Pragg that he managed to open up the bishop, because there is more pressure on f7. So now, what kind of move could we expect from black?
Rook a d8.
Rook a d8 is the obvious one. Also, knight d7 to try to go to c5 is kind of attractive. Can we try? Okay, so either we're attacking their knight, or we're trying to reroute this knight off of the f file. So let's try that. Or am I going to run into some sort of knight c4, where you try not to let me move?
No, knight c4 is fine. I think you can just play f6, right? And then you still have this knight c5 idea.
Good point. Yeah. So I think knight c4, I have a few different moves, but your f6 makes sense. And protecting the pawn and getting ready to go knight c5, yeah? Seems logical. All right, so I think that's another big decision for Magnus. So knight d7 is one move. But the thing is, if he goes here, okay, he's about to move something.
And he has to, because he has 8 minutes on the clock, and they have to start playing faster.
All right. Rook
because
d8,
that's
I was a little
C4.
bit worried about that.
Yeah, the pawns, yeah, a5 and
Yeah,
e5.
I was a little bit worried, but I mean, now it starts just to get kind of forcing, right? Like knight takes, maybe there's knight d2, or
Knight
no,
D2,
then there's rook f7,
yeah.
right? So,
I don't think so. Is it? Because then
you're saying like maybe I can still take here, like, but then I take with the bishop,
you
right?
take with the bishop.
And then it's still a mess.
Here.
As somehow I'm holding my pieces here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Magnus is going to want to go for rook d8 though. It's like it's a little bit like the structure. It gives the potential for the structure to change like right away, right? Because like the knight comes in and starts to hit both pawns. They're not protected. Then you're kind of like impelled into this. I mean, maybe this potential threat of that is really annoying. You know what I think we can do? Could we go f5 here? What do you think about that?
Why not f6? You're hitting
Maybe
that
f6 as well.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's possible.
But f6 maybe that one, yeah, and yeah, stopping knight d2, and rook e1 is coming.
Yeah, and if we play f5, you might still want to go knight c4, I think. Yeah. So White is kind of holding on in these positions.
But he played rook a8.
He played rook a8. Okay.
Just human move.
yeah. Attacking the knight was too attractive. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna see if Pragg plays knight c4, or if he prefers like somehow defending this knight and keeping the knight protecting the pawn.
I don't think defending is an option for Pragg here. He has to play knight c4.
Do you think he's gonna go active?
Yeah. Because if he wastes another move, like what he did with king h1, it's going to be backfired quickly.
Okay, so you're thinking we're going to see this.
Yeah, we're going to see this.
And then does Magnus have options, or taking this pawn is really the big one? I feel like taking the pawn is the whole point, isn't it? It's the whole purpose here. And so now Pragg has some choices, but like if this holds together, this line,
maybe you
right?
can just stop f7 threat by playing something like knight f5 maybe.
Yeah, you do have that move. You do have that. It's kind of an active move. It's too bad that, like, for example, instead of like a knight here, we don't have a bishop. Would be nice, right? Because then we could set up these beautiful checkmates. But at the moment, actually, this isn't really a threat. But it's an idea. It's an idea. It's an idea. You can sort of try to get that fork. All right. Well, we got some moves on the board.
Oh, he did rook f2.
He did rook f2. Okay. Well, that's not necessarily a bad move. It's just a difference move.
Yep.
Okay, so he goes rook f2, and that does mean, though, what it means is that this knight is not moving, but it also means that he's trying to play this. That's the point. So there is some activity involved in playing this move. He wants to attack the knight and then this pawn. So Magnus has to prepare for that. What's he going to do? He can't really... Can he move this knight? But if he moves it, then there's no pressure on the pawn.
Yeah, he can move it to g4, just not to have any attack on the f file. And then once the rook goes to e2, then maybe he can even double up on the d file. Because whenever you play this h3, I can always play my knight to f6 and h5 and have this f4 and g3 idea.
Yeah, that's your idea. Okay, so, but the problem is, so like, if I go here, if I go knight, rook e, so which move do you want to play? Like rook somewhere? But the thing is, it's hard to double. It's kind of hard to double, right? Maybe rook d4?
Rook d4, yeah, that's it.
For rook d4, I have knight f3.
So maybe rook d7?
But rook d7, you're going to really find this move, I think, knight c4 a little bit annoying. Or are you just going to double up and try to mate me on the d file?
I like to try.
You would like to try these attacks, yeah?
But maybe you have to play h3 at the end anyway.
Yeah, I mean, okay, like let's say you go here, I probably play h3. You go, okay, we're seeing some action, and Magnus has chosen a move. So he has gone for rook d4. Okay. Rook here, and wow, so knight g8.
And we have a result on the game between Abasov versus Caruana.
Looks like black won.
Black won, yes. And it was a very dominating attack.
It looks beautiful. It looks so beautiful. I'm so sad that we never got to see it because I mean, like from the purely chess point of view, that game looks like very exciting. But we know that the match for first place is what everyone is interested in seeing. So we don't want to miss any details in this game. So yeah, I think we got to stick with it. But we can admire Fabi's accomplishment later. Yeah. So he brought his knight back to g8 to guard the knight on f6. This is kind of interesting, right? It's a little bit passive. He's tied down here, but
it's blockading the
I
attack.
kind of wonder, like, what does he even want? Like, because he can't move anything, right? As black, so like how's he moving any pieces here?
Oh well, I think you just want to double the rook, and at some point you play b5. Try to undermine c4, but also attacking the fourth rank.
This is coming, you think?
Yeah, that's coming, and b5 is also coming. I think that's those are two main ideas by black.
All right, so white played c3, kicking the rook back, and then white went rook e2 to free the knight to go to c4.
And now Magnus is thinking.
It's down to 5 minutes. Okay, so we're getting to like the blitz portion, because it starts out so slow. 25 minutes, you feel like you're watching almost a classic game, right? Just a classical game, a little bit more accelerated, right? But when you get to 5 minutes, some point you remember it's like actually it's blitz. So you have to make some adjustments, although you are getting the 10-second increment.
Right. So now how does black prepare for this knight c4?
How does black prepare for this move, which is going to hit 2 pawns? He chose something.
He played some rook
Yeah,
move.
and it wasn't b5.
Rook e7.
Yeah, he went for rook e7.
So what's his idea? Like after knight c4 attacking a5, what are you going to do about it?
Well, I hope,
not rook a8,
I hope it's not rook a8. I hope he has some better plans
Or
than
maybe
that.
it is, and then b5 is coming. I know, hard to believe.
Yeah,
but,
no, I'm a little surprised how this is going. I feel like, okay, Pragg has kept everything together, and like for some reason, these pieces are still pretty passive, so nothing terrible has happened to white. I guess Magnus is really putting all his hopes on like the long-term weakness of the e4 pawn, but for the moment, it doesn't look like. Look at his pieces even, right? Like nobody's making any threats. So probably Pragg's position is under less pressure than it was when we first entered this endgame.
Right. Wow. Okay. So
knight c4, that's what the move we're definitely expecting by Pragg. What could he not like? Is there some sort of b5, knight a5? Like rook c7 to try to trap the knight after rook a8? That looks like such a crazy line.
That is, yeah.
Could Magnus really be planning b5? Knight here, and now the next pawn is under attack. Now you got to guard it, and now you want to win the knight. It seems surprising because there's so many moves. There's even bishop c2 and b4. Like I don't really see why would Magnus go for this? You know what I mean? Like from what he had. So I don't know. I'm a little surprised by how Magnus has handled this.
Yeah, but maybe also. Oh, he didn't play knight c4.
All right,
what did he do?
knight c4 was not played. Okay.
Bishop c2.
Bishop c2. Well, that gives us a chance to at least play b5, right? And I think that Magnus should probably take his chance to play that pawn move, but he's reaching for something else. Knight d7. Okay. Makes sense, actually, as well. And now on knight c4, how's he handling the attack on the pawn? b6 looks weird. So it actually might be, it might be rook 8 and then b5. Because I think you have to play these moves at some point. Like you can't just let the knight stay on c4 forever. So like if this move happens, okay, I think he finally put the knight there.
Yeah, and rook a8.
Rook a8, yeah. You just now this makes sense. Okay, he wants to play b5 to challenge that knight. Okay, it's like a balanced position. Perhaps this knight will finally come out to f6 from g8. All right, both players under 5 minutes. Yeah, we're getting to the exciting portion of this game. So far, we've had a lot of maneuvering. Yeah?
Yeah, you have to maneuver with these knights. yeah, trying to put them onto the best square. So far, knight g8 is not doing the job, but it will come. It will come to f6 and e4. E4 will always be
Yeah, another
the
important
target.
point is like when b5 happens, we're going to have knight d6. So we do have like some sort of active move plans, like hitting both pawns. So I'm not sure. I don't think Magnus can play this move just yet. Because after trade, knight comes in, we're hitting 2 pawns, right?
No, you're hitting just the b5
Oh, I'm
because
sorry.
f7 is.
Yeah. You know what? I was used to the rook being here. I was like, oh, we have this attack 3 times. No, the rook is here. You're right. So actually, b5 is a possibility already.
Yeah, but what after like take 6, like what you said, knight d6, how to protect this pawn?
How to protect the b pawn? I mean,
You just play
should we
rook
just keep-
b8 or b4?
Or b4. Yeah, like, okay, so as an example, let's like pass the turn for white. Let's play this move. b5, pawn takes, and to answer the question, how do we guard this pawn?
I think if you play b4, then I can just play bishop b3 back, right?
Yes. I mean,
Or takes first and then bishop b3.
yeah, something like that, and come back, attack this pawn, and...
And that
Well,
is
I
a
think-
very...
You think so? Yeah. because if
Yeah,
I
it's
play
going to be a very
f6
strong bishop.
Yeah, it's a little passive. Like overall, like
Yeah.
playing like this is just passive with this knight. Yeah. So
Pragg did something.
okay, he played
G4.
g4. Okay.
Wow.
Wow, that move is very committal.
It is, yeah.
You know, I mean, pawns don't move backwards. Once you committed here, like the obvious square that becomes weak is f4. Magnus might be very happy to see that move because now if the knight comes out, he attacks the pawn. And obviously if the pawn moves forward, he gets to go to that outpost. So Pragg must be planning on knight here. He must be planning to defend this pawn in some other way.
h3.
h3, right? But then he kind of, okay, Magnus did something different.
f6.
Oh, wow. He really played f6, huh?
Oh, I think I know. You just want to reroute your knight to g6 and f4. So knight f8, knight g6, and knight f4.
But what is this knight going to do? I was hoping that he would finally do something for that knight. Like, this knight was not my... I mean, it's a nice square for sure. Sorry, but... oh, rook g2 is on the board. Rook g2 is played by Pragg, and is he trying to prepare g5?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Because you cannot
Yeah.
play g5 now, knight e3, and then f5.
Okay, this was quite strange
Yeah,
to me. Like
that's
I
strange.
feel like this knight is being mistreated. Locked up in the corner on g8 for a little bit too long. All right, so white wants to go g5, break up those pawns. I mean, I don't know if g5 is like a huge threat. Maybe he wants to go, but I mean, that seems to be what rook g2 is showing us, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Magnus, now they're under 4 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know how this is going to be because this is still pretty much a 3-result game. And after g5, you're undermining this e5.
So maybe my knight needs to come out and try to go to f7. If you go here, can I go to knight f7? Or am I just...
takes and then rook g1.
Yeah, and then I was going to like defend my pawn with knight h8 or something. Or... That looks pretty ugly. But, I mean, was this kind of holding... I mean, the knight was on g8. It's kind of funny to put him on h8. But we might be, like, getting a little too passive, right, as these pawns.
And knight d6 coming. And
Yeah. So, yeah, unfortunately, you can't even do that because knight d6, knight f5 wins. Okay, well, there could be a better move than knight h8, maybe g5. Because if you go here, there's rook h8.
yeah, but
then-
you can just play knight e3, knight
yeah,
f5.
Yeah, weakening those squares, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, so he played... What did he play?
He did play knight h6.
Knight h6.
Yeah, knight h6 is on the board. And after g5, well, you know what? Perhaps he should take, and then maybe play knight f7. At least he gets a tempo like that. That's better than playing knight f7 right away. Yeah, it's definitely. It's basically like an extra tempo.
Yep.
So if g5, we take first, then we go knight f7.
And then rook's going to go back to
g3.
g3
And
or
then
g2.
how do we get ready for this move, or is it still not a big deal?
And there is also rook e6.
Right. You also have this way of guarding. So everything still seems okay for
Yeah,
him.
so
yep,
Magnus
this
took.
is happening.
And then knight
Rook takes
f7.
g5 on the board and knight f7. Okay. So there's still tension in this game. Nothing
Yeah.
has been decided. I mean, but basically, it seems equal. That's the point, right? Like now, both sides, basically, it's been good for Prague that the G pawn got traded for the F pawn. We should say that because, he traded off a more centralized pawn. Now both sides have this isolated pawn. This knight is pretty good. I mean, White's rooks have always been quite good. So it's balanced.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
So rook a6 is on the board, trying to prepare for this rook g1 idea. And now it's time for black letter to move around with the knight. But yeah, I like to put this bishop on d1 actually.
Yeah, how do we improve the black knights? Like, how do we improve this knight? It's not easy. Like, putting him there, I mean, he was just there, so it doesn't do anything. You can't, going there, trading for the white knight? What do you think? Or is there going to be too many problems on the d file to do that?
You might be able to do that, but yes, I think if you exchange the knight with the other knight, it will be better for black. So yeah, I think black can totally do that. Knight d6. If you play rook d1, just take.
D1, you
but
take.
there's bishop b3.
Yeah, and also like my rook just seems very active.
Bishop b3.
I don't know. I mean, that's the question for me. Is a big question. Is like what black is doing with these knights. They're not so bad, but like, you want to try to make progress with them. The other big question for me, like, is this still an idea? Should we get rid of this knight so we can finally move this rook? Well, that's another big one. So right now, Prague is on the move. He's been thinking for over a minute.
Yeah.
He's under 2 minutes now.
Yeah, he's under 2 minutes. So this is already
dangerous situation to be in against Carlsen, giving up that more than 1 minute advantage.
right. But also the position is not easy, so that's why.
It's a tricky position for both sides, absolutely.
So he put
rook
rook
d2.
d2.
Okay. So he gets off the g pawn and starts to target the knight. Very logical.
Rook f6.
f6. And Magnus, and it's amazing how fast he is, right? Like, how did he see this move so quickly? Okay, I mean, there's lots of things that you could do, but he just activates the rook and basically challenges, uses the tempo on this rook. That was instant. But I guess he was thinking. Yeah, he was thinking during Prague's time.
I mean,
Yeah.
also rook d2 is kind of natural. You just want to keep attacking some of the pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, this game... Okay, make a prediction.
Make a prediction? I don't know. I'm going to predict a draw. That's a safe prediction.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, like when you get down to a minute, absolutely anything can happen. So I want our viewers to understand that like the time situation that Prague is in is unpleasant. Magnus having 3 minutes against less than 1 minute. I mean, okay. I mean, Magnus can also win, but right now he's not winning on the board. But actually, maybe Magnus winning is not a bad prediction either, just because of the time situation.
Yeah, so, well, the position is still equal, but judging from the time situation, Magnus is in a very good favor.
Yeah, no, he seems to have like transitioned to this blitz mode pretty easily, but right now his position is balanced. Does he really have much to work with here? Not really. I mean, White doesn't really have any big problems, right? I guess, we might want to put that pawn up to a5. White has control over the d file. You can't really move this knight. Can't really move this knight anywhere. So everything is under control in the position.
Yep.
So I say, okay, I mean, objectively, like a draw is the result that we're going to see. And Prague's 10-second increment should be enough for him to hold this, right?
Yeah.
To hold this balanced.
I think so too, yeah. It will be very hard to reroute these two knights because the knight on c4 is standing very strongly.
Yeah.
I think that's the beast.
Should we just try b5? I mean, I'm thinking b5. Okay, Carlsen went here, but b5, maybe this was a problem. Then
and then a5.
Yeah, and then you get to have a pass pawn. Okay. Carlsen went knight, king f8. Very kind of interesting move, trying to bring the king to protect these important squares on the d file. Yeah, that's a nice looking move. What's Prague going to do here?
Yeah, very solid and principled as well. You just want to bring your king in the end game.
It's quite smart. Yes. Okay, so maybe Prague will go knight b6, and then Magnus maybe is going to go for the trade. But
king g2.
King g2. Yeah. No, I don't know. I'm starting to feel like, when I see moves like king f8, king e7, I'm starting to see Magnus's concept here and like how things could be a little bit unpleasant. But A5 is a good move.
A5 is a good move.
Yeah.
And I mean, so far, White has a better position on the queen side. So maybe, Prague is just using that fact. So rook h1, trying to tie down the king to its
the
position.
king here is excellent, right? Like these squares are guarded. Black has hopes of finally using these knights, finally, one day, right?
Yeah.
That can actually move. I mean, okay, we can see that this is unpleasant. Prague is under 20 seconds.
Yeah. Prague has to play faster now.
I think Magnus has just transitioned way better to like the fact that this is going down to blitz. You know, because you see how he just speeded up, right? And he continues to play fast, and he's just kind of, you know, seizing the initiative here, right? Like right now, exactly. The knight came in. Now there's a fork threatened, and king
king has to
g1.
move again. Yes. Yeah. Well, I think it's because Black has a clear idea on what to do in this position compared to White's. And yeah, we see it now. It's gonna be very, very like in the blitz mode, like
Okay, Prague's rook is under attack. He has to move it away. He moved to d2, rook h3. Like, look how fast Magnus is playing his moves. He just doesn't even want to give him a chance to breathe, actually. That's what I mean. Like, he could take a bit of time on these moves. I guess this one is fairly obvious. He wants to kind of use the third rank, maybe have ideas of rook c3. a6, what is that? Why is he doing that? Why did he just do that?
Did he just give up the pawn?
He did. He just gave up a pawn, and I'm not sure why. I have no idea why that move just happened. Okay, because he wants to get this pawn. But the thing is, like, first of all,
there's rook c3.
There's rook c3. That's one idea. And also in this position, there's also ideas of even the knight coming in with all those fork threats. So I don't know.
No, this is too loose. I mean, like, it's not a position when you're sacrificing a pawn, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Magnus went for knight g5 was stronger, but Magnus went for this. Knight a5, and now knight g5. Yep, played instantly. Now the knights are coming in. Look at those beautiful knights.
Wow.
Look at that attack coming in.
Right, and the king is in the meta net. Yeah.
He was merciless in this part. Did you feel that?
Yeah,
I mean, did you feel like how he just went on the attack and he started playing so confidently? He knew he had to use Prague's clock against him. All right. So now, what do we do? Black is still up a pawn. I mean, I don't know. This is obviously still a nice advantage for him, but maybe it's not the most, I mean, it's incisive. He might want to take a little bit of time here.
Yeah, I think he would like
this
to,
is still
to
a
keep
good,
the
very
rook on the
good
board.
move, right? Like this is still, I mean, chances to win, I guess, are pretty good here. I mean, he's just up a pawn. You'd think that he has like excellent chances to win this position. Yeah, but he went for something more incisive.
Yeah, I think he would like to keep the rook on the board.
Yeah, he went for knight g to h3. Is he going on the attack? So we probably have to go here.
King f1, rook f3.
Yeah, are there checkmate threats like on the back rank? There kind of are, aren't there?
Yeah.
There's like rook a3, rook a3, and there's a checkmate threat with rook a4. And also, this is incredibly a back rank checkmate.
Yeah, it is.
It is, because the king is completely limited by the knights. Oh, man.
Wow, and Prague just doesn't have time to think about everything.
Yeah, that's checkmate on the back.
So,
that's a check. No, hold on, he took with a knight.
It's a check.
King
f6,
king f6,
and
wow.
that's it. Wow, so Magnus won the first game, and in a completely equal position. And
but that was so good.
That was so good.
You have to
instructive,
appreciate, when you see this live, it's such a different experience from just watching, downloading the game afterwards and seeing the moves, right? Because you see, like it feels like it was easy, but it wasn't that easy. There were so many masterful things that he had to do to win this end game.
Yeah, and also, I mean, Prague has every reason to think longer, because the position itself is not easy for White, even though White had a better position out of the opening. But Magnus Carlsen just, with his masterclass, neutralizing all the attack and won.
I got such a good
game.
feeling about his position when I saw King f8, King e7.
Yep.
It's just like, if you can think of these moves so quickly and so, like it comes easily to him. When you see that, you start to feel like, okay, he's like, the maestro is taking over.
Right. Wow. Okay. I mean, that was very, very dramatic, I would say. And I hope Praggnanandhaa will be able to make a comeback on the second round. And while players are taking their break right now, we will also take our break. So see you again at the second game in a few minutes.
So I'm joined by 8 times national champion Irina Krush, Grandmaster. Welcome, Irina. Thanks for taking the time to come here and talk to us. So you played here in the World Cup, the first 3 rounds, but on the 3rd round you were defeated by Polina Shuvalova. Tell us about your adventure here as a player.
Yeah, well, I got knocked out in round 3. I played one bad game with the white pieces, and then it was over, right? So there was no chance for a comeback. It was just kind of a sudden end, and then I had to get ready for my role as commentator.
What's your best qualification in a World Cup?
Wow, I mean, you know, I feel, well, it used to be a little bit different because you used to start from round 1, right? So you had to kind of go through a few of them. I feel like probably round 3 is where I usually would lose my matches, actually. So, you know, I haven't gone very far in World Cups before.
So Polina, of course, is a very strong player. What do you think you could do better for the next World Cup? How do you think you could prepare differently, or is there any strategy you've thought about?
Yeah, well, definitely just, I think, being more of a professional, really just coming back to chess and studying chess more seriously, having your openings better prepared. I mean, I could definitely feel looking at her games that I'm looking at the games of someone who spends a lot of time on chess, you know, knows her stuff quite deeply, can do a lot of different things, is theoretically well prepared. So at least that would be a start, you know, getting my preparation to that level.
So after being eliminated, you went into the commentary booth. You already did a very good, very successful commentary in Astana in the World Championship. Here you've been doing commentary for nearly 3 weeks already. What are the challenges you faced here? How's it going? Any interesting anecdotes? How's it been like?
Yeah, well, it's been great. I mean, I definitely really enjoy working with Irene, and we're having a lot of fun. We don't have any particular challenges. I mean, my only challenge, getting here on time, you know, making sure I can order my taxi and that I can find it when it comes. You know, what other challenges during the commentary? The eval bar not working, so, you know, it just stays flat, you know, and then we have to realize that and be like, okay, we're working without an eval bar. That's happened at some point earlier. Last days it's been better. But yeah, no, everything's been going pretty smoothly.
Okay. So the eval bar is normally working, but you don't have the engines turned on. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, for most of the analysis during these few weeks, we haven't had any engine bar, but now we actually see one line of the engine, you know, so I have to admit that that's very helpful.
For me, at least, sometimes it's good to see it there, just to get some idea in a position where you're not, it's a bit stale and you don't know what's happening.
Seeing even one line of the engine bar, you know, it gives you some ideas that you can at least start discussing, right, before you kind of start thinking on your own as well.
So you were telling me before that you're traveling to India after this tournament. As a chess professional, you're jetting all over the world. Tell me about the tournament you're going to play.
Yeah, it's the Tata Steel Rapid and Blitz for women. So it's going to start at the end of August, and it's my first time playing that particular event.
And my final question, so are you planning to do a chess career as a commentator, as a coach? I see you have a YouTube channel as well. Yeah. When you finally decide to hang your gloves, using a boxing expression.
Well, the funny thing is I have to clarify, I'm not exactly like a chess professional. So, you know, playing tournaments, even though you've seen me around a lot this year, is not actually like the main way I make my living. So even though I'm kind of considering, you know, doing it more, you know, coming back to it, you know, more now. But yeah, so the question is like, when I retire from chess, you can say this, in partly it's already happened, right? And I am doing a lot of different things, a lot of coaching, some of this commentary stuff. Would I try to develop a career as a commentator? I think it's not something that I would try to develop, like it either just happens or doesn't, right? I enjoy it. I mean, obviously I love sitting here, being at the center of the chess action, getting to witness all the most important moments happening in the chess world and working with great people. And if I get a chance to do more of that in the future, I think I'll be happy.
Irina Krush, not only a fabulous chess grandmaster, but very successful as a commentator. I, for one, enjoy a lot your commentating. Without the engine, a very refreshing view on the best games in the world. This afternoon, all the attention was on the first game between Magnus Carlsen and Praggnanandhaa. Playing with white, the Indian surprised his opponent with the English opening. Slightly under the weather due to food poisoning, Magnus took his time to find the best defense, finally equalizing comfortably. He will enjoy the white pieces tomorrow in the second game. I'm joined by Magnus Carlsen. The second game of the match has finished in a draw, and we're going to ask him his thoughts. Magnus, first of all, are you feeling better than yesterday?
Yeah, I'm feeling a bit better. Very grateful to the organizers and Fide and to the doctors and nurses as well yesterday, who got me some good treatment. So today I'm feeling a bit better, but I still didn't feel like I had the energy for a full fight. So I thought, let's get one more day of rest, and hopefully I'll have more strength tomorrow.
That's good to hear. So this means tomorrow you'll have to fight for the title in the tiebreak. What do you expect for the match?
Yeah, he's already played a lot of tie breaks against very strong players, and I've played him a bunch in Rapid before, so I know he's very strong. But if I have some energy, if I have a good day, then obviously I have good chances.
Good luck. Thanks a lot.
Welcome back, everyone. And before we start the second game of the tiebreak, Rapid 25+10, we will take a look quickly at the game between Praggnanandhaa versus Magnus Carlsen. So Irina wants to analyze a little bit, and probably we also see the second game that is between Abbasov versus Fabiano.
Yeah, well, we just saw a really exciting end to that game. Basically, a very tense game throughout that got decided, I think, basically due to Prague's time trouble.
Right.
And also Magnus's endgame skills and his ability to put his pieces on the right squares. Right. So, but let's see how things went downhill. I mean, the thing about this game is that Magnus, once he saw that Prague was getting low on time, he just kept speeding up. Right. He kept putting the pressure on him, and he used that advantage rather unmercilessly.
Right. I mean, that's the thing when you're playing in the shorter time control, right? You're not only playing chess, but you're also playing against the time situation. And Magnus is a very experienced player in both Rapid and Blitz, and even in Classical as well, yeah? Okay, so let's see after this rook e6.
Okay, let's go here. Like the first quite nice move that Magnus threw in was this intermediate move, rook f6, that allowed him to improve his rook without actually having to protect his knight. So basically, white has a choice here. I think he chose to capture, but that actually improved the knight. So, I mean, you could go knight f6 right away, but then you can see the difference that you have this rook, which is just kind of unnecessary and passive, still on the board. So rook f6 was a nice inclusion. Perhaps, white needed to do something different here than trade. I don't know, maybe he should have avoided the rook trade, maybe gone here. But of course, then the knight is able to come into c5, and it's still a game. Or maybe he needed to kind of come out with the king to protect the rook. It's also possible. But he traded. Okay, so that was accomplished by black. He got rid of the rook. Then white played b4. It seems quite reasonable. Not a forced move, but basically it didn't seem like a bad decision at all. And this was where I started to really kind of like what he was doing, because he started playing moves that were not that obvious to me. And also it was just the speed at which he was doing it, right? Just like king f8. Yeah, the king finds the square in the center to control the infiltration squares on the d file. Very helpful. As soon as you see that, you're like, oh, that's a classy move, yeah?
Yeah, but I think it's also because Magnus is playing with a concept. So as long as you get a concept, the moves will come very easily. But on the other hand, Praggnanandhaa didn't really have any plan to do here.
Well, I mean, maybe white should have gone in for this. I mean, is there a point maybe even trading these knights? Because at some point those knights started hopping around a lot. Like, I don't even know what exactly would Magnus do here. Like, what would his judgment tell him? Keep the rooks on the board, offer up the rook trade, right? Like, for me, I mean, I wouldn't be able to make this decision in a split second. Like, what do you think? What does your intuition tell you?
Probably just trade the rook, but yeah, it's
right.
hard
Trade the rook would probably be what I would be thinking, but then white is absolutely fine, right? Exactly, right? So I'm just saying, okay, these were some key moments in the game. I think Prague maybe should have tried something a little bit more forcing. He went king g2, this king arrived, this pawn move seemed fine because, okay, it's just a good square for the pawn. And then Magnus, like, instantly finds that open file. Okay, now it's like we're not getting the trades of pieces so easily, right? So the eval bar is keeping this balance, but now, like, exactly what is the plan for white? Not so clear, right? Because this pawn is weak. This rook is, like, coming in. These knights are coming in. And it starts to feel, at least on a practical level, actually quite unpleasant.
Yeah.
So within just a few moves. You know, like white not even really making a mistake. So he goes here. And then this starts to get like already really unpleasant as he realizes like there's a fort coming. So the knight improves. Now the rook came in. I mean, yeah, like it was just relentless.
Yeah, and all the moves are quite natural. And I think we can quickly wrap this up because the second game is about to start.
Oh, yeah. All right. Wow.
And yeah, 15 seconds left to the first move. And this could be it. If Praggnanandhaa cannot win the second game and force the match into another tiebreak, then this could be it. And also the same thing with the game between Fabiano versus
E4.
Nijat.
He's going to play E4. Watch it. Yes. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I had to say that because the reason he's doing this is because he's going to play C3. That's it. I'm sorry. I had to bring this out there because I had some idea, which is that, you know, he was in the exact same situation against Gukesh.
Yeah, and he did the same thing too.
And he did the same thing. And I think overall that strategy worked just fine for him in that game, even though like it sort of he later on kind of outplayed himself. But his opening strategy worked out great. So it makes sense that he just stuck with it.
Yep, I think it is a very wise opening choice as well, especially if you play E4. If you want to play for a win, I think Magnus already knows that Pragg will go with the Sicilian. And then C3 is obviously a very safe choice against it.
Yes, and by the way, Gukesh against him, I think, played with D5, and Pragg goes for knight f6, which he also did against Arjun. So Pragg has, you know, he's going to this opening for the second time in this tournament in a must-win situation. It worked against Arjun, but let's see how it works against Magnus. So bishop c4, knight b6, and bishop b3. Yes. Now, the d5, I remember, is the main line with e takes, queen takes, and I think castles, bishop e6, and all of that stuff. It's very dangerous to take this pawn. Right, because I guess white just has a ton of compensation for the pawn. They have better development, more space. So normally black is playing d5 here. I guess he can play d6. It could be the same thing.
Yeah, I think it will end up with ed and queen d, and then that's the main line. But I think maybe Praggnanandhaa is going to come up with something else because, he has a very wide repertoire, so maybe he'll try g6. Oh no, d6 he did.
d6, yeah.
And
this is
takes,
different. And there is the move e6 here. I just want to point out that, queen d6 is sort of it's the main move, but I'm pretty sure this exists. Like these types of ideas where you try to take with the bishop and you go into the isolated pawn position. But he went for queen d6. And castles is on the board, and now generally we're seeing bishop e6 to neutralize this bishop.
Right. Wow, so let's see. We had two decisive results in the first game and two must-win situations. Nijat Abbasov and Praggnanandhaa needs to win the second game.
And they both need to win with black.
Yeah.
Which is definitely a tall order.
Right.
The first big one was that Pragg did not go for the main line with bishop e6. He went for bishop f5. I mean, we're kind of waiting to see where he would deviate because he needs to, right? Try to get off the beaten track and get a game out of this. And after bishop takes, knight takes d4. So we're going for an isolated pawn position, but we traded off a pair of knights. Pawn takes, and e6 on the board. So this is not the first time in this tournament Magnus has had an isolated pawn position. He also had one against Gukesh, where at some point it sort of started working against him. So e6 and knight c3, bishop e7.
And now, Magnus is still thinking. And he's
Queen
ahead
f3.
at clock. So queen f3, and then pretty much I think just develop the bishop on c1.
Yeah. This has been played in some games of good players, this whole position. Pierre Rune Robson, there's an older game, Lautier versus Polgar in 1993, Rosenthal is Bolagon, so this is not like some new position. And queen f3 is the most popular move, like by far. So what do black players usually do here? They either castle or they try to defend this pawn. So if they castle,
Do you take the pawn?
could take the pawn, or we just play d5, which is actually what he's going to do. I actually have no doubt that Magnus is going to play that move.
D5, yeah.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? In a situation where you need a draw, you can play that and then just trade off everything, and it's going to be a draw. So actually, this is super solid. By the way, I have to say this is an example of, again, smart preparation, right? Like, because he can start with any first move, right? He starts with e4 because it's like the most forcing castles is on the board. So is my prediction right? Is he going to play this move? We'll
I think
see.
so too. Yeah, yeah. D5 will just offer many trades there.
Yeah.
A lot of pieces going to be traded, and he did. Yes.
Yeah, it's too. Like even if this move was better objectively, you still wouldn't
You
play
still
it.
play D5,
You would
yeah.
still play d5. Yeah. So yeah. So what I was saying about like smart preparation in terms of like choosing the right first move. You know, he narrows his opponent's options. He kind of pushes him into the Sicilian,
Yep.
right? Because you can sort of predict he'll go for it again. And then he has this c3 Sicilian weapon, which is also kind of narrowing the options. And he goes for these kinds of positions which are very solid, right? So really like not giving his opponent a chance.
To mud the water.
Yeah, exactly. Good expression, to muddy the water. Yeah, it's quite smart.
Yep, but also it's an advantage of being a very universal player.
Yes,
Yeah?
yes.
I mean, I'd like to have such a smart preparation as well.
Yeah. But you have to know how to
But
play
I have to
all
know,
these types
yeah.
of positions, know all the
Exactly.
theory. Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
It's not easy. It's
It's
like
not.
it's like you're able to be smart because of your amount of chess knowledge.
Yes.
Yes. You're able to move around when you need to. Yeah.
So D5 is on the board, and it's posing some problem for Praggnanandhaa because, well, if he's not in a must-win situation, the position is totally fine.
Yeah.
But he needs to avoid some trades. But if he's avoiding it, White will just stand better.
Yeah, I mean, right now we have moves like Queen D7 is the most popular, Bishop F6. But the thing is, like, we're just going to be taking here, right?
Yep.
I mean, okay, you can throw in some other moves, maybe Rook D1, Bishop F4 could be an idea, but then there's maybe like E5.
Oh, and I think you can just pull back, yeah,
Pull back.
and then Rook E1.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I meant.
fine.
If you're trying to
Yeah.
avoid it, it's
So this game is likely to be less exciting than the first one.
well, yeah, you're right. But I think Praggnanandhaa will try to force the matters. So we will see. He's known for being a very creative player.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he will come up with something up on his sleeve. And yeah, he's thinking right now. So we might expect, like some sacrifice or something like that on the board.
Like sacrificing this bishop. Yeah, let's sacrifice it. Yeah, no, I mean, okay, it's hard. He's got his work cut out for him in terms of trying to keep this complicated. Because again, it's like White can probably try to play this position for an advantage, but certainly like just to make a draw like shouldn't be that hard. I mean, like we saw that when he needs to, like yesterday when he wanted to, he played for a draw quite easily as White and kind of took on a very, uninspiring endgame and still made that draw, right, without any problems. So, yeah, we'll see what Pragg is going to come up with now, but certainly the way Magnus has steered this game is unpleasant.
Right.
It's very unpleasant to be in this position when you're like in a must-win situation.
Yep. Also, in a must-win situation is Abbasov, which
Yeah.
is currently worse against Fabiano.
Okay, so he did attack the knight that had wandered in to G4.
See if there's any development in the Magnus' game.
There is. All right. So what did Pragg come up with? He went Bishop G6, which I think is not actually even a very popular move in this position. Like, it's barely been played. Let's see if there's been any top players going for this. I see just one game. I think Raja Harshit did this in 2017. All right, so he played Bishop G6. A bit surprising.
Yeah, I think Praggnanandhaa just wants to keep all the pieces on the board.
Well, yeah, but like, look what happens now. Now he gets a weak, isolated pawn. Man, Magnus is just steering this game like exactly in the direction he wants. So he goes Queen E2, Pawn's under attack.
King h8. Queen takes.
King h8. He gave up the pawn. Then there was a queen trade and bishop c5. And wow, yeah, no, this is going to be just, I mean, he's not even letting him get into the game. I mean, he's like, okay.
I give you my pawn back.
Yeah, I give you the pawn back. Like, he's not even interested, like, I mean, in trying to keep this extra pawn. He's like, I mean, obviously there are tactics. So Prague does have compensation, but just bishop e3, and it's like, you got to trade pieces. They made a trade.
Or maybe it cannot be taken back, you know, because after takes, how are you going to take this pawn back?
How are you even getting this pawn back?
Because there's
Maybe
bishop
rook
f7.
f8.
Bishop f7 is always there. But you...
Yep, I go with this rook. Don't I get it back? Or do you get your rook to the 7th?
Oh, you mean you want to take my bishop first or not?
Oh, yeah, I'm taking the bishop and going right here.
Okay, but then rook b7, right?
Like this?
Yeah, just bishop f7.
Well, you know, I have knight c4, so I take.
Okay, then it's a good thing. Like
I mean, sure, white is not having any trouble here. White is the first one on the 7th rank. But, you know, I don't know. Yeah, white's better. If you move there, then I just take your pawn, right? So black has to defend the pawn, and then I guess try to play knight c4.
And I'll play rook d1 and get the 7 rank.
Yeah.
Yeah, so white is just definitely better here.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tall order. But again, you know, I really think that, like, you know, making these correct choices, knowing what kind of, being able to go for these positions that are just unpleasant for the opponent, that's definitely a skill in itself. Right? Like, it might not look very exciting to us, right? Like, and Carlsen's obviously not trying to make this game exciting. He doesn't need any excitement in this game. But just imagine, like, remember what we talked about when you're in a situation where you need a draw, you want to kind of make your opponent forget that they're trying to play for a win. That's the situation that Prague is in now. Like, you can see it, like, you know it. It's just completely obvious that even Prague is looking at this and is like, I can't really win this.
You can see it from his body language, yeah?
Yeah, what did he do in terms, he went for rook e8, right?
So,
and you know what's Magnus? Magnus just went back with the bishop to b3. He didn't even try bishop f7, which is a little surprising. Okay, but his move is fine because he just controls the knight, right? He's just trading and trading everything, and you know, making a chess game not be exciting when you don't need it to be exciting is still a skill. Yes.
Yep, and Magnus is doing it. I mean, so far he's been like the director of their match, because on the first and second game of their classical matches, Magnus didn't into it at all. Right? And then he just felt like, okay, I just want to make a quick draw, and quick draws they were. Yes. And now he's finally had his time to make extra rest. Yep. And now he's coming back on the tiebreak, and just like totally a director. Like he.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, for sure. I mean, he has set the tone for their match. You know, Prague had his chance to play that first game where he was white. I mean, he played, he did what he could. Magnus had to defend a bit. He did that. You know, and then, well, you know, again, when Prague is white, I mean, he's trying to play. He had his chances today, too. He certainly did his best to create a game in that first rapid game.
Yep.
But Magnus just, like, you know, managed to neutralize it, you know, and using his experience, his defensive skills, everything, and then kind of being relentless in that end game that he's known for.
Oh, wow. And he took the draw. And congratulations to Magnus Carlsen, our Fide World Cup's winner.
Wow, yeah, this is such a good match. You have to say, he just got the job done, but he also produced a show for the chess world in that first game.
Right, yeah. Well, on the first game, Praggnanandhaa had all the chances indeed, but Magnus Carlsen, with his experiences, just taking down the match like this, Well, I think it was also a very good moment for Praggnanandhaa, because, man, to be the youngest finalist in the World Cup ever.
Yeah, I mean, this match doesn't take anything away from his incredible achievement in this tournament.
It's only adding up.
Yeah, I mean, I also feel like he's got a section. Well, it's going to be a very memorable event, World Cup, like Magnus Carlsen winning his first World Cup ever. You know, came to him later than the World Championship title, believe it or not, right? And he has made numerous attempts, and some of them he's had to leave this tournament quite early. So it's not an easy event to win. And based on that, we kind of know that the World Cup is always, it's kind of random in terms of who actually winds up winning from the top players. But in this case, the world number one won the event. I think he showed us some really good chess moments. Of course, I'm sure there are games that he said, he would not mind throwing away. Right. But ultimately, I'm pretty happy with the chess that we saw today. Like, as a fan, watching that first game, that had so many stages. Like, I feel like, he got to showcase a lot of things that he can do in chess in that game.
Yeah, I think from today's matches, we could tell that Magnus is number one for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah, because it was such a masterpiece. Again, he kind of like grinded something out of nothing. It's like, but okay, using the fact that Praggnanandhaa was in a time situation, like some time trouble, and he cleverly used that fact. So
he pounced on it when he got his chance. And the thing is, the transition was so smooth, right? Like, between the longer part of that game, right, where like it felt like it was like a slow game, and then when it got down to like under 4 minutes, or even like once he felt that Prague was in the time trouble, he just speeded up so much, even though he had time, right? He could have been thinking, but he started playing like it's a blitz game, and the pressure was just not ending, and eventually it kind of broke down Prague's resistance.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so that was, all in all, I mean, that game, I think, is like worth rewatching, guys, or watching if you haven't seen it.
Yeah. And what do you think? What is your conclusion also for the Women's World Cup?
Women's World Cup. Yeah, I watched the interview with Alexandra Goriechkina.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
She said that her final match, it was kind of a nervous affair. She felt the nerves were definitely in play because she'd been in the finals of the World Cup before and wasn't able to win.
Right.
Up until that point, it had been quite smooth for her. So I think, she didn't show too much excitement over the win. Maybe that's just her more calm personality. But it was, I think, the strongest player won, right? I mean, other than Ju Wen-jun, right, who was the other top seed. But she was coming off a very tough World Championship match. So her, exiting the tournament earlier was not a surprise at all. It was maybe more of a surprise that she even decided to come here. And apart from that, Goriechkina was, one of the top seeds. She's probably the most stable of the top seeds these days.
Right.
The most stable, the youngest. So her win in this tournament, you can't really call a surprise. I feel like both of our winners, Magnus and Alexandra, are, they're not surprises for sure. Yeah,
they were not surprises, but some of the matches, they also need some luck, to win some matches, because again, in hindsight, it could be Salimova who might win the
She had her chances. She had numerous chances in her match with Alexandra.
Exactly.
She could have ended it in the classical. She could have probably gotten close to ending it if she would have won the first rapid game. And of course, Magnus had one foot out the door in his match with Vincent Keimer. For me, that's maybe the most memorable thing about the World Cup, actually. It was that situation.
Yeah, and I think in general, my memory about this World Cup is about how the youngsters, they are taking over the older generation.
Yes.
It's exciting to see how this generation, Praggnanandhaa, Gukash, Arjun, Vincent Keimer, taking over the older generation. Hikaru Nakamura and even Fabiano Caruana, who we are going to have soon in the studio, was also took down by Praggnanandhaa. So so it's amazing.
It's a wonderful, wonderful step, I think, in Prague's career. Beating Hikaru, beating Fabiano, I think is going to give him a lot of confidence. I feel like he's got great chess qualities. I guess we can just, wrap up with some thank yous.
Of course. A big thank you to our crew here, the production team, who's been with us for almost a month, pretty much. And a lot of like the organizer and also a lot of media team also helping us, and Michael as well, because
with his interviews,
without whom we will not have the personal insights of the players.
I think he did a really important job here at this tournament.
Good job,
and that he was allowing us to follow the thoughts of the players every single day, so we could know what they're feeling and where they're at. And thank you to the World Chess Federation for, inviting us here, giving us this opportunity to watch this month-long exciting chess contest. Definitely I think will be memorable
Yep.
For chess fans.
Yeah, and thank you, Irina.
Yes, thank you, Irene. I know it was wonderful working with you, and
it is.
Your analysis was great.
No, I must honor you for that. Your analysis was great, and I learned a lot of. I gained so much experience, and I learned a lot of chess things too here.
Thank you,
So
Irene.
not only
we try to work as a team.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a good stuff. So yeah, I think we have everything.
Yes,
We said?
I think we said everything. Yeah, guys, thank you to our viewers. I think
yes.
it's always important to thank the viewers, who are watching us, supporting us. I want to thank all the people actually who reached out to me personally, like during these weeks, to tell me, they were enjoying the work and they thought, we were doing well.
Yep.
So thank you, guys. Thank you, Les. I know this one particular person who is always very supportive of me, and his encouragement. It's very important to me.
Okay, and yes. Well, we cannot say enough thank you, I guess, because there are a lot of people behind this production. So, stay tuned always for the upcoming Fide events, because this is not going to be the last for sure. And we hope to see you again in the near future. See you guys.
Bye, guys.